my dear friends and fellow developers. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to continue our journey in which we are discussing different topics related to our LWC framework. So in our today's session, we will discuss how can we send an event from a child to an owner, or you can say child to a parent. So to achieve this scenario, what we have to do, firstly, when a component decorates a field with @API, it exposes it as in public property. So we already know that whenever we want to make any property, methods, or field as in public property, it has to be annotated with @API. So that is the foremost thing which we need to do. So basically, what it will do when the page will render, so whatever value the component will have with @API, it will be get initializes. So this is the first point which it states that when a component decorates a field with Ethernet API to expose it as a public property, it should set the value only when it initializes the field, if at all. So what it says is like whenever there is a field with Ethernet API, so it has to be only set during the initialization phase. The second statement says that whenever the field is initialized, only the owner component should set the value. So this is also true that if let's suppose a component is there and it has public property and it is embedded in one parent component, so parent should have the full control of the child properties, or you can say child public properties, and he should be the only one who should set the value. So this is second thing. Third thing says that let's suppose if we want to do some mutation, so in that case, child component should send something to parent to notify that okay, please mutate this value or do some certain operation. So in that scenario only, this event comes into picture. So what it does is like child component will create an event and then it will dispatch that event, which will be handled by parent, and then parent do certain manipulations or updates in the property value, and then the same will be propagated to the child. So this is the entire concept how this event handling basically happens in the form of event when the data wants to be communicated from child to parent. So here is basically one code snippet. So basically we have two components over here. One is parent component and one is child component. So in parent component we have one property, or you can say one field named as contact, which is object, in which we have name, title, picture, and then we have one method. So in this parent component, we have one child component embedded, which is contact tile, in which we are passing the value of contact in this merge syntax over here. So as you can see, this is the child component in which we have contact decorated with @API. So basically, what it is doing, it is exposing this property or field, saying that it is a public property and it can be accessed by any other component in which it is embedded on. In this case, it is embedded in this parent component. So now, when the page will render, it will get this contact value, which we have hard coded as of now. So this value will be passed to the child, and then what it will do, it will update a template, the HTML template of child, where it will check whether contact is there or not. If it is there, it will give the necessary information like contact picture, name, title, and everything. So now, let's suppose if a child says that please update the value. So in that case, for that scenario, we have this button named as update contact. So whenever this button will be clicked, so on click event will be fired, in which it will call this update contact method. So basically what it is doing over is like it is creating a new custom event with the name of update contact, and then it is dispatching the event. So basically this is the syntax how the dispatching of an custom event can be done. So the syntax is like this dot dispatch event, in which we are creating new custom event with new keyword, and then the event name over here, which is update contact. So now, when this component will be rendered and the button will be clicked on the child component, so it will dispatch this custom event, which is update contact, and this will be handled by parent with the help of on syntax event handle, which is on update contact name. So basically, this is the syntax like on and the event name from which the parent will catch the event, or you can catch the dispatched event from the child component. And once it is cached, it will call this method, which is handle update contact. So now once the button is clicked and the event is dispatched, which is catched by parent, so it will call this method, which is handle update contact. And in this, we are simply updating the contact value with new parameters. And then since our LWC is reactive by nature, so when this value will be updated, so the same value will be passed in the runtime and the value will change dynamically over here. So this is the generic flow, or you can say the data flow, how it actually works, or you can say how the data dispatching will be happening from child to parent. So here is the output, how it will look like. So this first screenshot which we are having, this is a screenshot which will be shown to the user when the page will be rendered. So in this, it will taking the name from the contact field, which is Shivani Konar and senior analyst. And let's suppose if the user clicks on update contact, So then the event will be created and it will be dispatched, which will be handled by parent, and then it will update the value. So the new updated value is Pramod Jana, senior software engineer. So this is how basically the dispatching event and catching of when that particular dispatched event by parent is done, and then the needed operation can be performed. Now, there are some data consideration, or you can say data flow consideration, should be taken care of whenever we are working with data flow. So, to prevent code complexity and unexpected side effects, data should flow in one direction from owner to child. So, Salesforce always suggests that data flowing should always happen in one direction. It can happen either from child to parent or parent to child, so that our complexity can be reduced to a greater extent. So, this is foremost thing, that data should always flow in one direction. Now there are some pointers which we should take care about the data passing. So there are two types of data which can be passed. One is primitive type data and second is the object type data. So in case of primitive type data, Salesforce always recommend that we should always pass primitive type data for public properties instead of object type. So this is one thing. As of best practice, Salesforce always says that you should always deal with primitive data value. Now let's suppose you have a complex object and that data needs to be passed. So what Salesforce suggests is like you should slice the data in a higher component itself and then pass the primitive values to the component descendants, so that you can formulate that object again in child if you want, or you can do the needed operation with the slice data. The third point says that primitive value requires specific API decorator, that we've seen that the public property has to be decorated so that with added API, so that we can see that the data structure is in concise mode, or we can say simplify, or you can visualize the data how it actually coming. But now let's suppose instead of primitive type, we are passing object only. So in that case, the major thing which we need to see is like the primitive data type, which is let's suppose object or array, which is passed from parent to component, there will be on read only mode only. That means you cannot change the content of the data which is passed from parent to child if it is objects or if it is complex data type. So now what it says is like uh, you cannot update any content, it has to read only. And let's suppose if you are updating that value, so you will encounter a runtime error in your browser which will show that you are trying to changing the immutable value. But there might be a similar use case that the object has been passed from parent to child, but you have to modify that data. So in that case, what you can do, you can make a shallow copy of that particular object and then you can mutate it. So this is one workaround how you can bypass this read-only concept of the object passing. But as the Salesforce suggests that whenever we want to update any data or whenever we want to update any object which is passed from parent to child, we should always make use of event handling, or you can say we should always make use of concept of event, which we just seen right now, that we should create a custom event to notify the parent that please update this value with necessary information, and then the needed operation can be done. So ideally, if you are playing with objects, or you can say we are when we are passing an object as an data type from parent to child, we should always go with this dispatching event concept to mutate the value. So these are some of the consideration, or you can say data flow consideration, we should always take care of whenever we are working with data flow between LWC component, especially in case of child to parent when the dispatch event concept comes into picture. So yeah, that's pretty much for today's session. In today's session, we have seen like how we can create and dispatch an event and how it will be handled in our real-time scenario.